Number 9 of the mistakes is investing in upgrades that don't add value. Okay, let's talk about this. So we kind of covered this again in our veteran landlord training, but whenever you're this goes back to whenever you're purchasing it and sort of renovating it for the first time before you rent it. Some of the things that we have people do is don't put upgrades or don't put things into this particular unit that are unusual or that are higher or cost more than what other rentals would be in that particular area. So it's very important to model your house around what other people's houses are, because you don't want to sit back and necessarily make your house and pay for all this extra money that you don't need to. Now, it doesn't mean that your unit can't be nice. It doesn't mean that you can't put tile where you're going to put tile, and it doesn't mean that you can't do that. But just don't go above and beyond. You don't sit back and spend a lot of your money on this. Make it look nice, but not too nice, if that makes sense. So keep that money that you're going to spend on the property and maybe put that into your reserve account to handle for maintenance for a little bit later on. But the biggest things are to cover the maintenance items. That was one of the biggest things that we focus on. When you have a property and you need to get it fixed up, cover any and all of your big maintenance expenses. So that means as soon as you buy it, you're looking at your plumbing stacks, your plumbing lines, your HVAC, your roof, your gutters. You're checking out all the things that could be problems inside. Do any of the faucets leak? Things like that. So you want to make sure that all of that stuff is done, because if those things are finished, if those are tight and those are working, then your maintenance should be again light and small throughout the entire time that people are in there. And you should be able to go years without having problems with that. But you need to do that investment up front, and that cost, building all of those items, what you call building the scope of work that it takes to get that property up there. That right there is going to be included in your purchase price, which in turn gets included in how much cash flow you make. And I'm not going to go into the actual analyzing of it. That's kind of what we do in the veteran landlord, is walk you through there step by step on that. But just investing in upgrades that don't particularly add value. Now, one of the things that I kind of brought up here is sometimes people think, and landlords think, that adding something like a pool is adding additional value. That if you have a pool, that that right there will, people definitely love to be in a house where they have their own pool. Let me get this right. People love living in a house where there's a pool. Here's what people don't like. They don't like paying for maintaining that pool. If you're out there and you've ever had a pool, you know that it's an expense. From maintaining it to, especially if you ever have seasons where it gets hot and cold, because if you're in an area that just it's maintained like a nice 65 to 85 degree temperature, then you don't have to deal with problems that regarding freezing and then thawing, because that right there is brutal on concrete and more or less like pool liners. So that the expense of filling it up with water, the expense of keeping it clean, the expense of everything else, that right there, and then repairing that pool may not be as profitable as you think over there. So right now, that's just one of those things where I personally don't think a pool is a huge investment, that's going to add that much value to putting something like that in. As a matter of fact, we've actually done, outside of the rentals, we've fixed and flipped houses where we've had pools and we've just filled them in. And I know people think I'm crazy, but sometimes it's just not really worth handling the pool expense for that particular thing, because it can actually deter people from buying a house. Even if you have a house and you're trying to sell it with a pool in it, it can actually deter people from buying it, because the people buying it do not want to maintain that pool. And they know they're going to have to do something with it. So anyway, kind of degrading a little bit here, as I normally like to do when I start talking about things, but investing in upgrades that don't add value. So some of the things are like very expensive light fixtures, chandeliers. If you're having a rental property, chandeliers are great. Expensive lighting, like in dining rooms, can be nice. But just keep this in mind that those things are going to eventually acquire dust, and your tenants are most likely not going to clean them. So the more elaborate they are, the harder they are to really get clean when that person moves out. The nice, crystal light fixture now becomes dirty that you have to clean each little piece and it just becomes a nightmare. It's a huge expense to go through and try to get that light fixture clean. Where if you would have just put up a nice globe or something, light fixture, or I don't know, even possibly a ceiling fan or something like that, that would have been a lot easier to deal with. So just investing in your upgrades, make sure you pick the upgrade that's going to be compatible with your area. You don't want to put in too much, but you don't want to also put in the cheaper stuff either. Because people, depending on where you're buying the property, know if they've seen other properties in that area, what's reasonable to expect in there. Okay? So just save your money that you would normally fix on upgrades and put that into your maintenance fund, into your reserve account. That would be a great idea.